without further ado, we want to kickstart our webinar. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. I called it a diplomatic clinic because everyone goes to a clinic, there is a clinic day for diplomacy and international affairs and security and peace building and the global context of international in the geopolitics. So we have very distinguished guests. I have shared their bios in our group for everyone to read and understand them. For the sake of our time, because we won't hear much from what they have on the topic of strategic diplomacy vis-a-vis strategic security, and really how Africa can position itself in the context of global powers and emerging powers that are shifting day by day. What's the position of Africa? How can Africa position itself? But also, more importantly, how can young people embrace this fundamental change to suit a new purpose, either those seeking a career in public diplomacy or public life? So, ladies and gentlemen, we have very distinguished guests. We'll start with Honorable Minister Jide Matundu. I hope I pronounce it very well, Matundu. She's what struck me in her bio is that she started her being a leader at a very tender age. So she's a deputy, currently serving as a deputy minister of international cooperation and international affairs and international cooperation, Republic of Namibia. So very much welcome. For the details of the bio, they have read it for sure. I shared it with them. And we have Honorable Ambassador Charles Ray. He retired now from U.S. Foreign Service for over 30 years of service in foreign missions, served in security roles, diplomatic roles, and an ambassador to Zimbabwe. Those people from Zimbabwe, I think they might have seen you or known you. So welcome, welcome. So I want to start with a striking view. They say personal story in public diplomacy is a very critical point, but also to leadership. I want to start from how do your personal story shape who you are today, and how can young people start to embrace either their capacities, their strength, to suit their tomorrow? I'll start with Ambassador Charles Ray.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me to address this group of young people who, and I know you've heard it. It's a cliche that the young are the future of the world, but it's only a cliche because it's all too true, and it's a pleasure and an honor to talk to you. How did my personal background shape my views? Well, I mean, to start with, I grew up in a very small rural area, living on a farm that was barely big enough to support two people that had to support 8. I left my small hometown in Texas at the age of actually 16. I was lucky enough to be able to graduate from high school before I turned 17. And I began my national security career at the tender age of 17, wearing the uniform of the U.S. Army. Did that for 20 years before becoming a diplomat in 1982. And I think, as I look back on my career as a diplomat, my approach to diplomacy, working in places like Zimbabwe, I also worked in Sierra Leone and countries in Asia, is when you live on a farm, you have to be practical. You are subject to the dictates of the weather and and market prices after you've grown your crops. And so you learn to be flexible, you learn to be practical, you learn to focus on what works as rather than just on theory. And so during my 30-year diplomatic career, that's how I approach things. Find out what the actual situation is and then adjust my actions to fit the situation, not to fit some arcane theory.
Absolutely. So your background shaped you to be a practical, either diplomat or career-wise. I think in the military, you have to be practical and like growing up. So it teaches us that whatever you go through, it can be a great lesson to shape your career in future. So don't waste chances. That's the message I hear from you. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. How about you, Honorable Minister Ginelli? How about you? How does your background shape who you are today? What does it shape? What changed? What motivated? You can unmute. Perfect.
Thank you very much, Enoch. What was the name? Yes. Your Excellency, Ambassador Charles Ray, your presence has been recognized, and your participants. Myself, I am from the northern regions in the country, one of the driest region, which is Kunene region, in a small town of Opuo. We are bordering Angola. So the southern part of Angola itself, which is now the Kunene province, is the region which is border my region, which is again, the name is also Kunene. It's just a matter of how we write it in English, or our vernaculars this side and Portuguese on the other side. So myself, I'm from a small village also. I'm a rural girl, as I'm sitting here, and I have been in a village. I went to school, finishing school, I went back to this region. Yeah. That's where I started working after the university. I went back home because I had really a dream to say that, and learning also from others or checking from others that rural girls, mostly you go out there to the cities, big cities, but then the moment you are done, you don't want to associate back with where you came from. So I wanted to break that record and say, let me be an example as somebody who grew up in a village, who started my school again at the same village where I was born. Let me go back to my hometown, the capital of the region, and start working there, just to show to others that we can go back to where we came from. Not that once you got that university qualifications, now you also qualify to be in urban areas. That was not my case. So I went back there to this region, started working in public service, various ministries, of which the last was the Ministry of Gender Equality and Child Welfare, where I have been the gender liaison officer. I'm a gender activist. The ministry which I have really worked and made a difference in many lives, be it the young people, be it the community. And as well, I was born in a political home. That's where I grew up. I joined politics just from home. I did not go to look for affiliates or where, it's something from home. So that's how I became a politician. And at a very, very tender age of 22, I was one of the youngest members to take up a branch, which is really something big to be led by a young girl by then. I did that, proved to myself through the rank and files of my political party. And come the year 2017, I thrown myself into this big pot to say that the elders needs the young people whom they can train. That tomorrow when they leave, at least they will leave people there. So I went to join the Central Committee of the SWAPO Party, successfully elected member. In 2020, the president again appointed me in this role of being the Deputy Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, one of the second youngest people in this portfolio. So really, to me, I believe in myself. I believe that I can learn from anybody. And I'm also somebody who loves to learn from those with a know-how. When we are talking as young people of today, we are talking that no, the older people has to pave a way. We are not leaders of tomorrow, but we are leaders of today because I am ready, I can lead. I always say that let us come in per quarters, step bunch by bunch, but not to really to say that now that we are here, we have finished school, we have joined politics, let all of them go. I don't support that kind of thinking, but I'm saying that let them be there for them to show us the way.
Okay.
Even now, this afternoon, I'm very lucky that I'm sitting as a panel member with somebody with such an experience, which is Ambassador Ray, and I'm really glad to have him with me as a panel member. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's quite extensive, length of approach, full of wealth of experience. So, like you said, village girls, village boys, you still have a chance to be a minister. So she's an example. So don't worry about town dwellers. And if you're in the city, please go back to the village and help people. So thank you very much. So we dive in today's topic about diplomacy. And as the topic states, cultivating strategic diplomacy, shaping Africa for global influence. But we want to understand the nitty-gritty of it. So if you say, how do you define strategic security? Because it also shapes the strength of diplomatic world, or shapes power, shapes international relations. I want to first start with Ambassador Charles. Well, how do you define strategic security?
Well, you ask a big question, and I don't think there's a real simple answer that can be given because it covers so much. I mean, strategic security can mean physical security of a country or a community from outside or internal threats. It can mean economic security in sufficient jobs to support the working age population. It can mean food security. I think probably the easiest way to sum it up in a not so much a simple, but a simplistic definition is strategic security is the long-term survival and health of a national entity or a community. And it has to be looked at. Here in the U.S., we use the term the 3 Ds: defense, diplomacy, and development. I move those in the order occasionally because no one is more important than the other. It's a strategic security, I think, is the process of combining the impacts of national defense, national diplomacy, and development. That is either your internal development or assistance to others to develop in order to achieve your aims. Traditionally, diplomacy, which is in many cases, I think, it maybe not the most important, but everything almost has to start with diplomacy. I mean, building relationships. Diplomacy is traditionally defined as the management of relations between nations and international organizations. And without having that framework of relationships, the other two, the defense and the development, become highly problematic. So I guess
not sure.
I apologize. Sometimes the internet here in rural Maryland is quite slow. I don't. If I had to define strategic security, it would be the combining of diplomacy, defense, and development in ways that enhance the viability and survivability of the nation.
Perfect. I really like the angle where you're broadening the sense, not like traditional, like you said, security was tied to military, but today's development, today's healthcare, today's education, today's jobs. How about for you, Honorable Minister? How do you define strategic security? And for you, you are even in the right position where you deal with these things every day and every day. How do you define strategic security and bringing the context of Africa in it?
Thank you very much. I have prepared a very short statement that will speak to the topic. If I can be allowed to present it,
Sure.
Then we take it up from there.
Of course.
And it goes as follows. Your Excellency Ambassador Charles Ray, Master Enoch Tumini, founder and president of Africa Rebirth, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. At the onset, I would like to start by thanking you, Master Enoch Tumini, for really bringing all of us together to sit around one table and discuss what we think it needs all of us ears. I'd also like to thank the organizers for the job well done in assembling some of the brightest minds in the world to exchange views on matters pertaining to the strategic advancement of the African continent. There's no doubt that the topic under discussion is near to everyone's heart, as it is also close to mine. The gathering here today confirms to me that many of you are passionate about supporting the development of our future African leaders into happy, well-adjusted individuals. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, without taking up much of the time, allow me to share my own understanding of the new ideas of strategic diplomacy. Cultivating strategic diplomacy is crucial for repositioning Africa, given the current global political and economic challenges that the world is facing today. These challenges can only be mitigated if we maintain unity among our nations and promote intra-Africa trade. It is for this reason that I'm proud to inform you that Namibia is a signatory to the world's largest free trade area, namely the African Continental Free Trade Area, to contribute to the efforts of building a stronger and more resilient African economy that will raise the standard of living for millions on the continent. The African Continental Free Trade Area will unlock Africa's potential to play a significant role towards global economic growth, for which the continent only accounts for about 3%. With a dedicated secretariat in Accra, Ghana, African Union member states have put their weight behind this initiative that is driving the excitement for a new and industrial Africa. I think I can end it there for now.
And you brought in a very key component of the African Free Trade Treaty. That's one of the biggest trade blocs ever signed. So that brings me to my next question: is what key areas can we Africa bench on? That could be areas of improvement to strengthen its diplomatic capacity in the at the global stage, because the strength of a nation is always reflected in the hierarchy of diplomatic strength and influence in the world. Now, when you look at the United States, it speaks about its strength in its diplomatic capacity to enforce its interests of globe, also to negotiate, to turn around things in their way. So how can really Africa, what key areas can really Africa partake in that direction to improve and strengthen the capacity of its diplomatic strength in the world today? I'll start with you, Honorable Minister Jinali. What do you think that Africa should, and starting like even from Namibia as an example? Yeah.
Very much. According to the African Development Bank, agriculture is the backbone of the African economy and a major source of income in many African countries, which also Namibia is included. With about 60% of the total arable land in the world, Africa has the potential to change the narrative in a global agricultural value chains, which necessitated a re-strategizing towards modernizing the agricultural industries through agribusiness and agro-industry development. In an ever-changing world, Africa must act with a greater sense of urgency and put the right policies and framework in place to support our farmers to ensure food security and create more sustainable jobs. Today in this world, and in a small country with a small population like Namibia, we rely heavily on our agricultural sector, be it crop farming, be it livestock, in all those sense. It's something that backs the country, and with that, food security is also secured through the agricultural sector. One would maybe just to advise that when we are pursuing different kind of decisions in life, let's not leave the agricultural sector, because it's really one of the biggest that boost the economies, the African economy.
Absolutely. Agriculture, you mentioned agriculture, and it's like, wow, very big and neglected, important, yet the most, like you said, the backbone. Can you imagine a person walking without a backbone? Can he walk? Can he stand? Can he sleep? He can't. So why neglect such an important sector? Coming back to you, Ambassador Ray, you had experiences working overseas, and specifically you worked in Zimbabwe for years, interacting with various stakeholders. Well, what's the missing link? Where can, what could be the areas of improvement to strengthen the African?
Thank you. I would first of all totally agree with the Honorable Minister. I think one of the key issues that has to be addressed is food security. I mean, if I've often said to my talk to them about voting, because a hungry man's not going to take the time to go to the polls. I think you know, the idea of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is absolutely great, but from my perspective, I think it needs to be expanded. I mean, first of all, countries need to have internal food security and other security, adequate jobs. But I think that Africa needs to work using the Continental Free Trade Area as a four countries. It's the largest regional voting bloc in the United Nations General Assembly, which is a powerful tool if wielded properly. And so I think that expanding the free trade area concept to more cooperation on Africa itself to trade, so that countries with excess can share that excess with other countries, and then the countries on the continent can play to their strengths and combine these strengths into a much more potent continental or regional force. Some issues I think that need to be given priority, along with the idea of food security, is more inclusiveness, both within countries and across countries. The idea of including young people in the political decision-making process and in the economic decision-making, of addressing the needs of women who are the backbone of the food production process on the continent. I mean, when you talk about agriculture and food production in Africa, you can't ignore the fact that women are the key players in the food production process and in agriculture. And I think looking at all of this holistically, how do all of these factors, health, food security, education, housing, and jobs, how do they fit together to strengthen an individual country? And then how can that country work with its neighbors and farther abroad to strengthen the region and the continent? I think if more effort and more energy is applied to solving that, then Africa in the future, I mean, you know, by 2050, 25% of the world's population will be living on the continent of Africa. That's a huge percentage of the globe. It could, if the continent comes together better, be a defining factor in global affairs in the decades to come. And it could be doing it for, I mean, Africa could set the model for the rest of the world on how to deal with issues of food security, climate change, and the like. And I think that's, you know, if I had the ear of all of the heads of state on the continent, that's what I would be whispering into their ear. Start working on pulling people together, and let's not ignore the differences, but mitigate the differences, settle the disputes, and pull together as a continent for the good of the individual countries, for the good of the continent, and for the good of the world.
Absolutely. I totally agree with your answers there. So what I get is cooperation, but also maximizing the untapped potential of internal markets, because we trade more with the world than within ourselves, and in the process, the chain of distribution, because you can't sell raw coffee and someone sells a finished coffee and you are equal in terms of profit. The distribution chain, it has an imbalance. So, but if we trade with each other very well and develop capacity for internal generation of revenues, we could make a big international bargaining structured international market, and that will leverage our prices, but also increase the value of goods. And if you're a farmer, I think you get more profits. but even the middleman earns more as the revenues come. So that's what I get in a sense. But I want to follow up with the discussion. I see the discussion of big factor of food security, but they also saw like security-wise, like let's go like to physical security now, like military, these rising conflicts in Africa. How do we go about that? How do we tame the growth of the increasing insecurities in terms of conflict, gun war, like that's what I mean exactly. So how do we tame that? As we tame food security, how do we tame that diplomatically? I want to start with the Honorable Minister generally. What do you think we should do? Yeah.
Thank you very much. Before coming to that one, I just also wanted to add quickly to what Ambassador was saying in terms of food security. In the experience of Namibia with our developmental partners, because at many instances, you will see that we are being fed or being given handouts. So we came to around the table discussing with them and said that we really need the skills so that because we know that sponsorships may not be there until the end. But if you teach us the know-how, we'll be able to sustain ourselves in case if there are difficulties as a reason with being sponsored. So with that, we have introduced kind of small projects by our villagers. We just look at the areas where do we have maybe enough water so that we can teach these people to put up some gardens, to give them seeds so that they can plant for themselves and have food, maybe for themselves, to feed themselves while they are, just to take them away for being now relying on handouts, but now becoming their producers. It's also one thing that Namibia as a country and through the Ministry of International Relations and Cooperation, it's doing. We have advised our developmental partners, those are assisting us as far as food security is concerned, that please teach us the know-how. Which seasons do we have to put up any type or different type of plants? That way we'll be able tomorrow to sustain ourselves. That's how it went. Another aspect that I would want to look at will be the foreign direct investment. As we know that our continent, just again to add to where Ambassador has ended, cannot develop without industrialization. And that really requires the foreign direct investment. And it's to be targeted at manufacturing of goods, where he was talking about that we really need to do it ourselves. And the example of the coffee that you have just gave, of one selling it raw and then the other one finish, who gets more profit. So therefore, with that, as I have already said, that Namibia is a signatory to the African Continental Free Trade Area, and whether that our focus with partners around the world is the value addition of or to Africa's raw materials, including the agro processing, which will increase our economic growth, ensure job creation, raise incomes, reduce poverty, and strengthen, again, food security. So Africa's youth population, as we all know that they are the biggest, taking the biggest population of 60 to 70% around the continent's population. And it's young people They need to be empowered with the necessary skills, just as I have said that we really need to be shown the way, or we really need to be taught about the know-how, how do we go about, and focus on also mentorship for towards unity of purpose. Mentorship is one of something that is really important, just as I have said in my opening statement that we need to be mentored as young people, and we should really allow those with the know-how or those who have been there ahead of us to teach us. Today, when our elders are talking that we have been in exile, we have fought to liberate the country, and some of the young people will say that we don't want to hear that because we were not there, and now tell us about economic emancipation, because it's what we know. The struggle where we came from, we didn't know. If you allow yourself to be mentored, you will really go a long way. And such initiatives will lead to a stronger and more vibrant Africa, representing a dynamic force in the international arena. If I quickly also have to give an example of myself, when I came here, as I said, I'm a gender activist, and I came from a different background than the role that I have been mandated with. I felt like I was thrown in a sea and I don't know how to swim. Then all these questions were coming, where do I start? And then here comes COVID again. Because I thought that, okay, I have to start learning quickly so that I can also be at the same pay with the others. But then here come COVID, then again, it was now lockdowns across the world. But then I was so frustrated to say that now we have to work from home. From whom will I learn now? Who will mentor me? Who will show me the way? But as we were working during the lockdowns, and with the regulations which was put in place, us definitely we were not restricted. We were busy working. We were coming to office each and every day. But as matters were now arising or challenges across the world, Namibians got stuck where Namibian got stuck where. So I was really hands-on without knowing that, we are really working, we are not on lockdown. So that's, I just want to emphasize on mentoring that youth, I'm a youth, and I know my population or my counterparts. Let's allow ourselves to be shown a way. Let's allow ourselves to be told of what to do. Don't even come and say that, but I know that already. Just listen. There may be a word or two that you will be hearing for the first time.
Absolutely.
Yes. We must therefore also protect our youth from the divide and rule tactics of the yesteryears that has brought selfishness, corruption, and wars to Africa. Our strength is in a united front. Never again should we allow a scrabble for Africa to detriment of our future generations. It's just, I'm just repeating myself with what I was trying to highlight to my dear participants. And we can only achieve the above if our drive for socio-economic development is safeguarded through peace and security. And for that matter, I'm also really glad that we have a security expert among us. And as I'm sitting here, I'm not regarding myself that, no, I'm a deputy minister and I know everything. I really want to hear more from him as far as security, peace and security is concerned. In this regard, our continental peace and security architecture is being strengthened with the involvement of our youth ambassadors in support of implementation of the UN Security Resolution of 2250 in support of the implementation of, yes, that one. There's youth peace envoys will promote peace across our continent with the assistance of the AU commissions. Because as we speak, or currently, the AU, which is the African Union, has put in place what we call youth peace envoys, and they are working hand in hand with the AU commissioners. And that one also is coupled with the resolution 1325 on the increased involvement of women in peace building processes, mediation, conflict prevention, and peace support operations will further enhance the peace and security landscape of the continent. Namibia women is also not spared, because during the peacekeeping missions, we have seen our women on the forefront going to neighboring countries to go and assist to bring peace or to protect those who cannot protect themselves in those countries. One of it being the DRC. We have sent a peacekeeping mission, Liberia, I can name them. And currently we are also assisting Mozambique, though that we did not send human personnel right now, but really we are supporting them through our contribution that we are making through the AU bodies. So it's really important as young people to be the protector of our own continent, because when the war comes, we will not be spared, but women and children will always, which will also include now the young people, will be the mostly affected ones. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for elaborating that. So war doesn't benefit everyone. I think everyone loses in a way. So thank you very much. I want to ask one more last question, and we can open it up to the audience. I think they have very many questions to ask. So everyone here must be somehow, somewhere interested in diplomacy. In your experiences, Ambassador Charles, Honorable Minister Dinelli, what makes a good diplomat? Can you highlight a few things that makes a good diplomat? Because most people know, like, being a diplomat, putting on a nice suit, latest suit, then dining, whining, and that's it. And putting on a tough topography, like you're a serious man. So what makes a good diplomat, and how can someone become a diplomat?
Wow. Okay. Well, first of all, that image you give, unfortunately, is what's been created by popular media, that diplomats wear pinstripe suits and spend their time at cocktail receptions hobnobbing with senior government officials. And I get that a lot when I talk to audiences here in the US, and I remind them that while I did in my 30-year career as a diplomat spend a lot of time at receptions, it was never fun. It was always work. Yeah. But I spent far more of my time in rural villages, going to where the people live to get a better understanding of the problems they had, their desires, and their goals. And that's really, I mean, diplomats, first of all, the job of a diplomat in a foreign country is to protect.
Oh, lost you.
Host country, hopefully in a win-win, mutually beneficial way. That means you spend a lot of time getting to know the situation in a country, and you do that by, believe it or not, listening. I mean, people associate diplomats with a lot of flowery speech, but the most effective diplomatic skill is listening listening and understanding. You know, there's a Native American saying that you don't know anyone until you've walked a mile in their moccasins. I mean, you as a diplomat, you have to be able to see the world the way your hosts see it, not try and impose your view of the world on your hosts when you're in a country, but to see it the way they see it, and then to be able to communicate what you know of what they see back to your government, so that the policies that are made in your capital regarding the country where you're serving make sense. I mean, you basically, so I would say to be a diplomat, you learn to listen, and you learn to see, and you learn to communicate effectively. How do you become a diplomat? Well, I mean, different countries have different methods of getting into the profession. Here in the US, we have an exam process, and basically, I think anyone who is able to anyone who can be comfortable in a different culture, who actually enjoys dealing with difference and learning new things, I think, and who can listen, who can disagree without being disagreeable, can be a diplomat. So how you do it depends on the process in your country, but I think if you're interested in living in a world that works well for everyone else living in the world with you, then you have the makings there of a diplomat.
Excellent. I like what he said, learning to see. People want to talk before they see, you know, I see with the many like experts on international stuff. A guy will come on a show and put a speech of 22 hours on how conflict in Congo is unfolding. The guy has never stepped in Congo, he just hears, you know, so it gives me an idea, like learning to see, observe. How about you, Honorable Minister? You work in the Office of Diplomacy, you know. You might be having even like internships for young diplomats who are interested in becoming diplomats. You can actually share, we have so many people here from Namibia, you can actually share practical ways someone can join the diplomatic world. How can young people take advantage of that? But in your way, how do you see, because I think you're the chief diplomat of your country, so what makes a diplomat tick?
Thank you, Enoch. Being a diplomat, it's something which is really not easy. Let me start by today, which is a Saturday. And this is now the time where parties and everything begins. Look where we are. That's number one. Honestly speaking, being a diplomat, it's not easy. More specifically, when you are now operating in a different state, where you have been totally cut far away or sent far away from your family, your family will become the citizens of the country that you are now serving. And being a diplomat, while standing on the sediments of the ambassador, you are representing the interest of your country in that specific country where you have been sent to represent your country. You are representing the image of that of your government in that country. You are the ears and eyes of your country in the receiving state. So being a diplomat, it's not sitting in an air-conditioned office. It's something, it's just to open your eyes and ears so that you can listen and report back home. Just as Ambassador has said that you need to be somebody who listens, who's able. And the other thing is also marketing your country. If I have to take it back to the year 2020, when the COVID-19 has touched the ground, specifically in the African continent, many activities has been affected. Of one of each was now the tourism sector. Namibia, it's heavily also relying on its tourism sector, and the fact that the tourists was no longer coming to Namibia because of COVID, the industry has went down. Now, upon the openings, as a diplomat or as an ambassador in those countries, you really have to market and start telling these people now that to market to them that they can still come back to Namibia. Here's the situation, here's it. So you don't sleep. You are a marketer in your own space. So being a diplomat, you are everything. Even you cannot sleep because of a problem which is in a neighboring country. So as we are saying that we are not safe, because Ambassador, I'm not sure whether it was Ambassador or you who have commented on the silencing of the guns. Yes, we know that in Africa currently on our agenda, we have some of our countries in a continent that are still experiencing problems. And those problems are not their own problems. They are also Namibia's problems. They can be also any other, that of any other country on the continent. So it's as a diplomat, each and every night as you are going to sleep or waking up, you just first has to look to the international news and trying to get what is the latest happening in a, for example, the DRC, which is one on our African agenda. What is happening in Mozambique? What is happening in Eswatini? What's the latest in Lesotho after they have had the successful elections? So it's that life that we really learn to cope with it, but really it's not an easy one, because you are everything to your country. And when you are sent there to represent the country, you have to be the ears, you have to be a good listener, you have to be a good reporter, you have to be a good analyzer to analyze any situation, because you will not be given a statement on a silver plate and say, this is what is happening around this country, go and report to your country. You have to be an observer. You observe, write your own confidential reports and submit it to your country. So being a diplomat, it's all that, while standing on the sentiments of the expert. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. So could you share a little bit on how, specifically in Namibia, like you're a Minister of Foreign Affairs, how do you recruit young people? What are the opportunities for young people to be diplomats? Specifically, there's some open internships. What's the process like?
Thank you very much for that question of how do we include, let me take it in a perspective of saying that how do we include the young people on board in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? In the perspective of Namibia, we have looked around, because there are levels where one has to enter each and every job categories, of which we have seen it was very difficult for the young people to join this ministry. And one of the aspects which was a thorn in the flesh is the experience. Imagine you are just a fresh graduate coming from the university who has to join this ministry, which requires you that at least you must have had an experience in international affairs. So as the ministry and its management, we have thought of the university fresh graduates. Then we thought of how do we include them? How do we invite them so that they can have come and apply to this ministry? How do we bring them on board? They don't have an experience. They don't have what we need. So we introduced the lowest position of entering, kind of entry level, which we are calling cadets. And I know that in every, like in the army or police or so, we have cadets. It's now for those that are to be trained to come in a system. So we have introduced the positions. They are foreign relations officers by rank, but then they are cadet foreign relations officer. So we are recruiting the young people, those that has to enter or fresh from the universities without any experience, they enter the ministry at that level. Even if any other person who have been maybe in a different job category also come into this ministry and who said that, no, I also want to join international relations, but how do I go there? It requires me experience in international affairs, of which I don't have. So you apply and you come in this ministry as a cadet foreign relation officer. That's how we include them. So these people, while they are, the moment they enter, we train them for 3 years in a process, and we don't also keep them apart or put them somewhere. They just join and hands-on what we are doing. They are being supervised by various senior managers, and with that, after 3 years, automatically they are being transferred to the next grade, because now they have graduated from the ministry to become a full foreign relations officer. Then from there, they can now grow in the ministry as per the ranks as they go up. That's how we bring them. Currently, we brought a bunch of 15, if I'm not mistaken, 15 new cadets. And today, as we speak, we have rotated them already to go to the departments in which they are now going to pursue their experiences. And then again on a rotational basis, because the ministry has also introduced a rotational basis to say that we don't want to keep a person at, let me say, multilateral issues or either bilateral, but let them rotate those who want. It's just a voluntary act. It's when you want it to be rotated to go and learn something else in the other department, so that tomorrow when there's a position there, at least you already know what is going on there. So the young people is something that this ministry, under the able leadership of the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister, Honorable Daitwa, do really take the matters of young people at heart. And we want them to continue joining us. We train them and be part of the team. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing credible information. So the young people from Namibia, please don't say that the minister never shared information. You have all and the opportunities. So it's up to you. Again, this tendency that young people feel that, oh, the minister will come out of the office, go look for them. Come knocking for opportunities, you know. She's busy dealing with other global matters. So knock at opportunities, the opportunities are there. So with that said, I want to open it to the audience. So the protocol is, if you want to speak, raise, there's a hand button, press it. I want you say your name and the country you come from. Also chat, you can drop your question in the chat, and you can direct the question to Honorable Minister Tinelli or Ambassador Charles, whoever you want to ask. So quick to the point, don't give a report, just quick the question. Okay, Nelson.
All right, thank you for this opportunity, Mr. Enoch, Ambassador and Minister and the participant. It's really been a very wonderful session. My question goes first to the Ambassador. He talks about some values of a diplomat. And the most important thing which he didn't mention is about negotiation. If you're a diplomat, you really need to have the skill of negotiation very, very, very well. And if you're a diplomat also, you carry a lot of values, a lot of information, sensitive information from your country. So that will help you in negotiating. And when you're going for negotiation, at least you need to have a clue about that country. You know, to study about the country, the resources, and the valuable things there. That will help you to make a very good negotiation. My question is, he talk about most of the time is win-win solution, right? But sometimes it's gonna be a difficult situation whereby it's either lose-lose or lose-win. So what are you going to do in such situation? Let me say, for example, the case of Russia, what is happening in Russia. Let him just try to describe. Is it the diplomat fail or the negotiators fail, or what is it like as a diplomat? That's to the ambassador. So my question goes to the minister, honorable minister. I heard of your wonderful introduction that you came from a political family background. That's how you came to the politics. And how can you advise the other people who didn't came up from any political background, not their parents or grandparents? How can they come? How can they make it in the politics? Thank you.
Okay, I'll take a stab at the question for me first.
Yeah.
First of all, in regards to your comments about negotiating, if you're talking about, depends on whether you're talking about formal negotiations or just the daily give and take of diplomatic life. I don't disagree that it's important to be able to negotiate, but I would maintain that knowing how to listen and understand what you're hearing and disagree without being disagreeable are skills that negotiators need to have in order to perform successful negotiations. As far as, and you're also right, you can't always have a win-win situation. You should strive for that first, but at the end of it all, you never forget that as a diplomat, you represent your country, not the country where you're serving. And so you must do what promotes your country's interests, but try to do it in a way that does not insult or degrade or debase the country you're dealing with. And again, it goes back to, you can disagree without being disagreeable. Every disagreement doesn't have to be a fight. What happens when negotiations break down? Well, I mean, you keep actually negotiations never really, they don't achieve their aim at times, but even in a situation like we have in the Ukraine, the fact is that negotiations continue. They might not be formally announced, but people are talking and looking for ways to find an exit from this tragedy. And then just as a final thing, and again, I think popular media and the news media are negotiating is not one of the main things that diplomats do. A good 70 to 80% of a diplomat's time is spent in taking care of his or her citizens who are in a country. And how do you provide assistance? And the negotiations, in my 30 years as a diplomat, I was involved in formal negotiations, even as an ambassador, only maybe 10% of my time.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. like you said, formal negotiations. But would you give an example, because people might be confused? You said you can disagree without being disagreeable.
Yeah, okay.
Would you hit more on that, like make it more plain, clear?
Example, and this is not from Africa. I was also ambassador to Cambodia at a time when there was a real serious problem in that country. Well, two: one on human trafficking, especially the trafficking of children into the sex trade, and another was violence against the political opposition. I had to go to senior people in that government and say, we strongly disagree with this. Your position on treatment of the opposition is not something that we think is right. There are areas where we can work together, but I must say that I disagree with this. And I actually, to the Prime Minister, basically delivered a message from members of the U.S. Congress who said, on certain issues, especially fighting human Congress, to go to the Prime Minister and say this. I did, and he looked at me and said, I can live with that. That's the essence of diplomacy. You're not always saying, yes, I agree with you. You're saying, I respect you, but I disagree with you. That's diplomacy. That's disagreeing without being, you don't preach to people. It's not a value judgment. If I disagree with you, I disagree with the position you're taking, not and it's what effective diplomats have to do on a daily basis. Is you agree where you can, you disagree where you must, but you maintain an effective working relationship throughout. It's sort of like living in a neighborhood. You don't agree with everything your neighbors do, but you don't have to be fighting with them over things that you disagree on, or being married. I mean, anyone who's in this event who's married knows that husbands and wives don't agree on everything, but they still manage to keep the relationship going. And diplomacy is a lot like that. You disagree, but you keep it civil.
Thank you very much. Honorable Minister, back to you, the question. Yeah. Unmute. Let's see. Okay. Unmute. You're still muted. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the question which was posted to me, if I captured it correctly, it's how can I advise others also to join politics? I think that was the question. My journey in politics never came on a silver plate. I will start with that one. And it also really gives me emotions when I'm talking about my journey in politics, because the person who has trained me to become who I am today in politics, it's no more with us. So being in politics, you really need to be somebody who is patient. It really needs somebody who is active in political activities. No matter whether you are in the structures or not, because you are only coming in the structures when you are identified as an active member of the party. That's how you can be voted. Because in politics, you will not come in with a qualification to say that for you to come and lead a branch, you need a degree in politics or a degree in whatever qualifications. It's how you are taking these matters close to your heart, be active on a daily basis in politics, learning the dynamics of the political region where you are residing. So as it has been already said that I have said that I was born in a political home. And in that political home, it's not me alone. There are also other siblings of the house, but who is not in politics today. For me, I decided to follow my aunt whenever she's going to her meetings, taking minutes for her and just be next to her. So she saw me really that, no, this child is coming well. Then she decided that wherever she's going, she will invite me. Even the time that at times we were not living in the same town, as I said, that I remained rural up there when she was working in a city. But whenever she's heading back there to the region, she will try to find my programs and say that, no, there's a party meeting, we better go and attend. Then at a tender age also, as people based on my active participation in political activities, that's how I was entrusted to run a branch at such a tender age. Then again from there, I did not continue, because when you are in a town, definitely you are moving from one location to another at our ages, at young people. But then I went to stay in another location or suburb, of which now you have to relinquish this position to somebody who resides there. So where I went, I joined the youth wing, being a representative, because I was as a branch secretary, which is something higher. But when I came now in this branch, there was already leadership in place. But I did not say that where I'm coming from, I have been a branch leader, so let me now take this one. I took up the position of now representing the youth or the youth wing in that certain branch, until I was again elected as a district secretary of a constituency. From there, I remained as a district executive, district secretary, until I was again, I took a decision to say that was now around 2017, 15, I started saying that, no, I think I had enough of politics. Because, you know, in politics, a lot of things is happening. And those who have been there are saying that politics is not for the faint at heart. You need to be strong. You need to accept any change that comes at any time. And also, again, when you are going or running for elections, you must be prepared to say that, okay, I'm going to run for this position. If I lose, I'll follow those who have won. But not to say that if I lose, I have to put up a fight, because why not me? So I grown up like that. Then again, I will, in the meantime, I decided that, no, I want to go back to the academics. I want to quit politics. That's now when I was, as per our constitution, you will be in the youth wing until you reach the age of 35. From there, you have to move to the mother body, and you are no longer a member of the youth league. So I decided that as my age is approaching, why can't I'll quit and just concentrate on my academics. But as I have said that I was groomed by somebody, she said, no, you can't quit politics. You better shift to the mother body. We are aging. We need the young minds also that side. When my name was thrown in the pot to come and compete with other members from the 121 constituencies, to join the SWAPO Party Central Committee, I was really demoralized to say that, no, this is too much for me. Who will vote for me? As young as I am not known. I don't know people. Where will I start? How do I campaign if I'm not known and this young? Who will vote for me? But then again, at party level, our elders were also looking for young people. Where is the young people on the political table? We don't have them. We don't see them. Where are they? It's something that the party always look at to say that the young people should also come in. So that's how I came in. Our fellow youth members who were operating or who have been in the city and in many areas, we grouped and say that as members of the Youth League or candidates coming from the Youth League, we really have to sell our candidates. We have to market them. We have to make sure that we campaign at least so that we can either take in one or two in a central committee. That's how I came to join the central committee of the party. It was really not a short journey. It was a very long journey. And somebody even, as I was complaining, that we call it a pot, because you're going to be cooked and until either you burn in a pot and your name never come out to make it to the central committee. I was complaining all over, but then somebody said, no, hey, stop complaining. You are young. Just go and burn. You will burn and maybe tomorrow you will got nicely brown bright. Then you go out of that pot and become a member of the central committee. That also kept coming in back in my mind, that how can a person say that I should just throw myself in such an embarrassment for me to go and burn in that pot and never come out. But as I have said that I believe in myself and I'm a very strong person, I sit and speak to myself and say that, okay, let me try. At least I will build it up on my CV to say that 2017 elections, I was a candidate to this mighty big party central committee. So it's just to be really strong. You need to be strong. You need to believe in yourself. You need to be active member. And with also, you need to be a critical thinker, because when you are campaigning, you really need to think, you need to strategize, you need to know your opponents, all the people that you are competing with. That's how you may just make it. Yes. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you very much for sharing that. We'll run quick. We have like 10 minutes to go. We don't want to keep our honorable guest forever. Kennedy, really quick, then Tsitsi. We can't hear you, Kennedy.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Kennedy Wabuge. I'm from Kenya, Nairobi, Kenya, and I studied Bachelor of Science in Information Technology, and I practice network engineering, and now I'm a data analyst at Airtel Kenya. Okay, my question to our guest speakers is that one, why is it so difficult for the Western countries to consider Africa as an equal partner when they are doing their economic bilateral relationships? Like when they are doing something, they don't consider Africa as an equal partner in their business. Then the next question is there any challenge when someone is too much diplomatic? Okay, those are my only two questions.
Thank you. Who wants to take it first?
Well, I mean, I guess since I'm part of the West that he's referring to, it would be fair that I take a step. I think part of the reason, and historically, that here in the U.S., Africa has not been taken seriously is ignorance. Very few Americans really understand the continent. I mean, our news media only covers the crises, the wars, and the famines, and there's very little news coverage of the realities of many of the countries on the continent. Just Namibia, for example, I doubt very seriously if many Americans, to include senior government officials, could go to a map and show you where Namibia is, much less understand the history and background of the country. So when you have that lack of understanding, and that goes back not just a few years, we're talking about a lack of understanding that goes back hundreds of years, where people from outside Africa never bothered to try and get an understanding, a fuller understanding of the nuances and complexity of the continent. When you have a situation like that, you will have deficient policymaking. Unfortunately, a lot of people think of Africa as marginal or peripheral to world affairs, as opposed to being a significant player, which is mistaken, misguided. If you just think of the demographics, within the next 30 years, Africa will have 25% of the world's population. You currently have the second largest rainforest on the planet, which is crucial to maintaining livable global temperatures and carbon absorption. With such a large population, the majority of which will be under 25, this is can have a significant impact, positive or negative, on the global economy. There are countries in Africa that have big problems. There are also countries that basically have been stable and peaceful for a long time, but you wouldn't know that if you picked up the New York Times or other major newspapers, or you tune into CNN here in this country. So that's part of the problem as to why it's difficult. Now, I would say that there are people in government who are beginning to understand that. I don't know if you've read the current presidential administration's Africa strategy, which I am proud to say that some of the I run a program for a think tank having to do with Africa, and some of the policy proposals that we made over 2 years ago, before the election, actually found their way into the policy. Now, of course, it's a matter of seeing if they're able to implement it. The key is that many of us who have some understanding of Africa have pushed, is that we in the United States, and we can only speak for ourselves, I can't speak for the Europeans, need to look at Africa as a partner, not in a sense of being patronizing, but try and look at the aims and objectives of the African countries and find but it takes time. It also takes cooperation and understanding on both sides. I think I just recently I was in a conference and it was brought up that the administration's promises that were made in the U.S. Africa Leaders Summit in December haven't been implemented yet. Well, you can't implement these things overnight. It also takes working with Congress. So while there has to be more education on the part of American policymakers about Africa and more outreach to Africa as a partner, not a patron, there also has to be understanding on the African side that these things take time and it takes cooperation on both sides. I don't know if that answered your question, but it can be done. Whether it will be done takes a good faith effort on both the side of non-Africans and Africans committing to work together and making an effort to develop a relationship that benefits both. Beyond that, I can't say. I mean, I'm not in government, so I can't speak for government people. I can only tell you that where I have the opportunity to speak to government people, I make the point that we need to, all the things that I said that makes a good diplomat. We need to learn to listen. We need to learn to understand other people, to walk in their shoes, and we need to look at the world through the eyes of the people we're dealing with, and not try to force our opinion or our views on other people.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. We have 3 minutes to go to the point to end our wonderful session. But I will give Honorable Minister a quick time, real quick, to say something on the question. Kennedy asked, why the West look Africa, not take it like small, like take it serious? His question was like that. Can you comment that real quick, and we'll summarize today's session?
What was the question?
The question was, why does the West, doesn't, when they're adopting serious policies, global policies, whether economic or political, geopolitical, they don't really take Africa as a partner, but as a way of imparting their ideas to Africa. You can see also that the Geneva summit, you never see here, and that Windhoek summits, world leaders gathered in Windhoek to adopt policies. So that's the question.
Thank you very much. Let me quickly start with, because there was also a question in the chat that says, it's actually asking about what is a letter of credence, which was, we received new ambassadors, and yesterday they have got that opportunity to present their letters of credence to the head of states. A letter of credence, it's like a letter of introduction sent by the sending state. A sending state, it's now where it's a country where the ambassador is coming from, and the receiving state will be now the country where the ambassador is going. So this letter is actually a letter of introduction where you'll be introducing yourself, a letter where there are recommendations, and then again, it will be presented starting with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, is where you report yourself first, that you have come in this country and you have been sent from this country. So you come with a letter. Every ambassador going to any state go with that letter. And then after you have seen the ministry, the seniors at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it's when now we allow you to say that, okay, fine, we have received you, you welcome this person, and then the next person of whom now the person will leave us with a copy. First, you present your copies, you leave them at Foreign Affairs, then your original documents is the ones that now you go and present to the head of state of the receiving state. Now, when you go to the head of state, you go with 2 letters, because when an ambassador is coming in a country or to the receiving state, it may that you are replacing somebody. So now when you come also with the letter, the recall, first you give in your own letter, then again at that moment, the sending state will send you with the letter that will now recalls your predecessor to inform this president that now this is the person that we have sent to you and no longer this person again. That was from the chat. Coming to policies and cooperations, as you have put it, or when we are signing them. So let me quickly also touch on that Africa, as we are saying, nothing to be done at the table for Africa without Africa. That's when we are now asking the United Nations to reform the United Nations Security Council. That is what Africa, as we speak, it's something that that we are advocating in any African continent, the whole African continent, any country within the continent. It's speaking about that reform the United Nations Security Council, because currently, as we speak, we don't have a seat. We don't have permanent seats in the United Nations Security Council. And now, even with the recent or with the current issues or conflicts that is happening between Russia and Ukraine, Africa, it's also a target. You want us to say something, you want us to say something, but then without us being represented at the table where these matters are being discussed, how Africa will now voice their voice to the world. That's where our demand is, to say that we are advocating for the common African position in the United Nations Security Council, whatever which has to matter Africa. We ourselves as Africans, we have to be the one to speak, but not to send our message to somebody to go and table it in the United Nations Security Council. So Africa as a continent, we are standing together, and we are advocating for these seats as they were outlined or enriched in the Eswelini consensus and the seat declarations that Africa should have at least 2 permanent seats in the Security Council, and also with full rights like any other member. So now when countries or when we are signing for this cooperation, you don't just sign anything, but you check what interest does this cooperation has to my country, what mutual interest, what areas of cooperations that I want to get in, or what will I learn from this country, or what will I benefit from this cooperation. You check yourself, put yourself together before signing any of these agreements, be it agreements, cooperation between countries. Sometimes it may be, for example, maybe we are having a shortage of doctors per se, as an example. So you go to countries who are really in the forefront or who are good in that industry. But then you ask them that this is my situation, I want assistance from you. Those people will not just be sent like that to say that Namibia has asked this, so let's send what they have asked. Or we see Namibia does not have this, let's go there and advise. Any kind of form of agreement or cooperation between the two countries, you need to have it on paper, of which also your legal experts in your country has gone through them and has agreed or advised you to say that this is the legal opinion, this one is okay, this one change paragraph 8 and whatever number to suit our needs or to suit what we have requested. Because you may request people, but then again, this country will be open to say that, no, we are sending you these people, it's fine, but cover the following costs for them. As a country, you need to sit and look down and say that, no, we cannot just accept something like that, but A and B and what, let it be changed or change the language here and there. Then that's how we now come to the agreement or reach now, the two countries have agreed with, which is contained in this document. That's how we come and say that now let's have a signing ceremony. Thank you.
Thank you very much for elaborating that entire process, for sure. Good question. We are running out of time, but before we end, we usually have magic words from our guests. If they can forget everything you mentioned, what key things like should we take home? Two things, just quick. Ambassador Charles.
Two things to take home is that the world will be what you make it, and you should not let anything stand in the way of the mission that you set for yourself.
Perfect. The word is what you make it. So it's up to you. You're the captain of your soul and the destiny. Honorable Minister, generally, 2 words that people should never forget.
Yes, in my closing remarks, I would like to address the member to say that our president, His Excellency Dr. Hage G. Geingob, has themed the year 2023 as the year of revival. So that was a call to all Namibians to think ahead of the future. And with that, I would like to say, let's believe in ourselves. Let's knock on different doors. Let's go and look for assistance. Let's just, let's knock, let's avail ourselves to those whom we think that this one may know better, or I may want to know this. Let me really go and ask. And then lastly, I would like to thank you for gathering us again. This is a moment that one wants it to be not the last, but we are open. Whenever we have time, we can agree upon, then we come and try to talk to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister Dinei, Deputy Minister of International Affairs and Cooperation, Republic of Namibia. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Ambassador Charles. It has been a phenomenal discussion. I just want to say that you've been speaking to the African Union because everyone here is from different African countries. And this is my take home notes. 1, learn to see. If you want to be a diplomat, listen, disagree but not disagreeable. And I like what Honorable Minister said, a year of revival. Revive yourself, revive your mindset, revive your friends, re-engineer your friends, those who don't make you go higher, change them like clothes, because if you have an old clothes, you go to the shop and buy a new one. So whatever suits you, let's go out there and make it. At the end of the day, these are discussions. The biggest lesson or the biggest takeaway is practice. And that's what differentiates knowledge from wisdom. Wisdom is the application of knowledge. You might have a lot of knowledge, but zero application. And it's upon change comes when people apply wisdom, not knowledge. So it's application of what you know. So can we apply the basic things, the fundamental things our guests have shared? So thank you very much. It was a pleasure hosting you. The entire African Rebirth is very grateful, and we shall always knock to your doors, like Honorable Minister said, for further engagement. And Ambassador Charles, it was a pleasure. Have a very good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.